So this brings me to our economic goals. So this is pretty much the three goals that underpin macroeconomics. Our first goal is the goal of strong and sustainable growth. So a good way to define this goal is the goal of strong and sustainable economic growth aims for growth in real GDP of about 3 to 4% per annum. Without causing excessive inflationary or environmental pressures. The inflationary and environmental part is sort of optional, but I did like to include it in my own definition just because it also helped me format my answers and sort of reminded me what to write in my answer. In terms of the numbers for all of these, just want to give you a heads up. Your teacher might ask you to put different numbers, so I know that my teacher made me put 3 to 4%. For growth in real GDP, just do what your teacher asks you, because at the end of the day, the economic examiners, they have a range of values that they will accept. Next is the goal of price stability. So the goal of price stability, or it's also called the goal of low inflation. And this goal is where you want consumer price index to increase at a rate of 2 to 3% per annum. And then this on average over time, or on average over the course of the business cycle, is really, really important, because inflation is not about just sudden changes in price, it's about sustained changes in price. So if you got like a sudden change in the price of toilet paper, but then the next day it drops, that doesn't mean that inflation has occurred. So it has to be sustained and an overall increase in price over multiple goods or services. Consumer price index, we can talk about that a bit later on, but instead of saying consumer price index, you can also say a headline inflation of 2 to 3% per annum on average over time. So that's something else you can use. Goal of full employment, a good way to define that is the goal of full employment aims for an unemployment rate of 4 to 5%, and then in brackets I used to write NAIRU. So what that means is we've got enough employment so that people are still like relatively happy, they have a job, they're able to afford a lot of things, and there's good material living standards. But at the same time, we don't have so much employment that we have too much inflation, too much spending, we have no spare capacity. So that's pretty much what we want to achieve. And a few of the definitions for employment that's pretty relevant to ECHO. So we've got people who are employed. So you're classified as employed if you are doing at least an hour of paid work every week. So if you're doing an hour of volunteering, you're pretty much unemployed. But if you're doing an hour of paid work, you are literally employed. So it doesn't matter if you are looking for more work. It doesn't matter if you don't like working 1 hour, you'd rather work full time. Doesn't matter, you're still employed. Next is unemployed. So unemployed is basically when you don't have that 1 hour of paid work every week. You are willing and able to work, and you're actively seeking employment. So you can see how that definition is it has a lot of loopholes. So you can have someone who's willing and able to work, but not actively seeking employment. They are classified as, they're not unemployed. If you are not willing to work, you're able to work, and you're not actively seeking employment, you're not unemployed. So you're only unemployed if you're willing and able to work and you're actively seeking a job. Some of the notes, so like I said earlier, some teachers prefer different values. They might use different terms, so just go with what your teacher says, and that'll be good for the exam. And some of the figures as well, just go with whatever your teacher tells you to use, because there's a range of values that the examiners are going to be happy with.